يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن نبينا محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I don't mean to point out a specific brother, but Jazakallahu khairan Uthman for reviving a forgotten sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam when it comes to sitting in the halaqat, in the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The sunnah is to try to get as close as possible to the person who is giving the knowledge, unless obviously a person has an excuse, a person is elderly, senior, a person is sick, unable. Even myself, it is often difficult for me to sit on the floor. I would have sat on the floor if it was possible. But this is some of the things that we need to remember as Muslims, that we have our own ways. Often when you see in other gatherings, you see people sitting far away. But in the Muslim gatherings, especially in the Muslim world, in the masajid, you will see people sitting almost like a circle, the halaqat. And you have the one person, the alim in the middle, who tells them about what the Prophet ﷺ said and did. And there are many hadith that highlights the virtue of getting as close to the person as possible, and it warns us against those who sit far away and then leave the gatherings. And you might know, especially on Yawm al-Jum'ah, the virtue of coming early, getting close to the Imam, and being as close as possible to the Imam who is delivering the khutbah. Before we continue where we left off, just to repeat what we said in the reminder of the Salat al-Isha about this virus that people talk about on the news, the coronavirus or the disease. And from the very beginning it is important to establish some facts. When a person speaks beyond their knowledge or beyond their field, then they will make errors, they will make mistakes. If an imam speaks about medical issues, he will make mistakes. He will call a virus a bacteria, and he will call a bacteria a virus, and the medical professionals, they will laugh and they'll say this person has no knowledge. So I am not standing here or sitting here trying to seem like I have all the knowledge. But what I know is what Islam says on the issue and what we can benefit from as Muslims. Islam teaches us how to approach this ta'un, this plague, this very massive disease that is spreading. And within that there's a beautiful aspect of the religion. That Islam is a practical religion. It's not a religion that only tells you to pray salah and to give zakah, but it teaches you everything from how to wash yourself from the washroom when you relieve yourself, to how to take care of people when they face this great problem, this disease. But to keep it brief, when it comes to this disease itself, like we mentioned, the disease itself is something that is traceable back to the actions of human beings. And now we're not speaking of conspiracy theories where we say this is the act of CIA or other organizations and such. But what we say is that every action has an effect, it has an impact. If a person does something that goes against the fitrah, that goes against human intuition, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created in us, there's going to be an effect, there's going to be something that comes out of that. And like I mentioned in the salah, after the salah, this does not mean that we point fingers at a nation and say these people are savages or these people are wrong or so on and so forth. But it shows us the beauty of our religion. That haram is haram for a reason. And halal is halal for a reason. It's not there to make things difficult for us. It is there to protect us. And this is a concept that we struggle with as Muslims. Often we think as haram is a burden. We say, I wish I could do this. I wish I could go to any woman that I want and fulfill my pleasure or fulfill my enjoyment. But there's a reason why this is haram. Because if you indulge in that, then the ansab, the ancestry, the lineage is forgotten. Who's the father of this person? Who's the mother of this person? And so on and so forth. And with this behavior, you will see that diseases come along with it. Diseases like the Prophet ﷺ described that the people before us never knew of. New diseases, deadly ones. And we keep hearing about them day in and day out. But again, today's halaqah is not about this virus, but I just wanted to highlight it since some of the children in the madrasa, they raised the issue, and it's as important as adults, as parents in the community, to have this discussion with our children, or with the children of the community, if you don't have children yourself. You see this on the media all the time, you see this being talked about. What is the Islamic approach? The Islamic approach has always been to take the necessary precautions, to rely on medicine. Islam is not against medicine. To seek the advice of those who know. You don't go to an imam asking about the pain in your stomach. You go to the medical professional. In the same way that you don't go to the medical professional asking about a fatwa. You ask the imam. So if we have this approach when it comes to Islam, then you will see that all these answers will be, all these questions will be answered. But again, we have to talk and we have to address this issue. Many families, they kind of do not address all these issues, whatever is happening. And the children are going through Instagram, and they're going on Facebook, and they're going on all these social media. And they're seeing Kobe Bryant died, and this person died, and there's a virus here, and there's an earthquake there, and there's a fire in Australia, and so on. But the Muslims, they remain quiet. And this is not the right approach. The right approach is to always teach people what is the Islamic approach, how do Muslims see it. And I appreciate that you do not come to the masjid to get a news update. Some people, they complain and they say, I come to the masjid to learn about Islam. I don't come to the masjid to learn about who died and what is happening on social media. But the point remains that you do not live in a vacuum. You live in a world that is happening. And Islam is not about being a monk and secluding yourself and just living in a monastery. Islam is about interacting with people. This person died, he was a non-Muslim, how should I react? What should be my behavior? You should know these things. diverted from the class. Let us delve into it, inshallah, and we'll keep it brief and to the point. Ali radiallahu anhu, at this moment in time, he's made the Khalifa. And even the way that he's made the Khalifa, it is actually against his own personal will. He accepts being the Khalifa of the Muslims because of necessity. He looks around and he does not find anyone else that can take on that responsibility that has their qualifications. And this itself, it teaches us as Muslims how we go about taking on positions, whether it's the position of an imam or anyone else. Islam is not teaching us to put ourselves forward. And even in big organizations, they say this is a red flag. If a person says, I want to be the president, then they say, this person, maybe we need to look into him more. Because being part of a company or an organization, it's about being part of a team. You need to be a team player. But if a person comes from nowhere and says, I want to be the president, I want to be the king of the country, then that is a red flag. But if a person has studied the affair, and they've looked into the affair, and they say to themselves, you know what? I don't see anyone else taking on the responsibility. Just like Yusuf alayhi salam. Because he had knowledge, he knew for a fact that he was suitable for it. And then what did he say? He said, make me khaza'in al-ard, make me responsible for the treasury of the land, inni hafidun alim. And he mentioned his qualities. So similarly here with Ali radiallahu anhu, he's mentioning, or he's taking on the responsibility, even though he does not like it. And where is he coming from? He's coming from the death of Uthman, a beloved friend of his, a companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he takes on this responsibility, but what happens? People from the outside, they start putting pressure on him. And they say to him, your first mandate, your first responsibility should be that you do the qisas, that you hold responsible whoever killed Uthman. And who are the people that are saying this? Excuse me. They are the relatives of Uthman, mainly. And Ali, he understands that this is not the time. The people who were surrounding Medina at that time that came and killed that killed Uthman, some scholars, they say they were about 2,000, about 2,000 people. And where are the majority of the Sahaba at that time? The majority of the Sahaba, they are in Mecca during the Hajj. So Ali, he looks at the situation and he says, we have other things to focus on. But the other people, they don't budge. And you can imagine how emotional that moment is. Uthman is killed. Who from amongst us as Muslims wouldn't stand up against those who killed Uthman? But Ali, he realizes this is not the time. And then some of the companions, Talha and Zubair, after about 4 months in Medina, when they see that Ali is not addressing the issue, they leave Medina. And they go where? They go to Mecca to meet Aisha radiallahu anha. And when they meet her, they tell her about, all that she knows about what has happened. And they separate and they go against, not openly, but this is the way that Ali radiallahu anhu perceives it, against him. And now Ali takes a stance. And again, like we mentioned in the previous classes, when we speak about the Sahaba, we only speak about them good. And we never speak about them in a bad way. But this is just to illustrate what happened. And these Sahaba, they were mujtahidun, they were people who did their ijtihad. And whatever they believed in, they followed 100%. So now Ali radiallahu anhu, being the cousin of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, being so close to the Prophet, on top of that, following the Sunnah to the T, once he realized or he understood based on his own perception that some of the companions, including Ummahat al-Mu'mineen radiallahu anha, had gone against the Amir al-Mu'mineen, what did he do? He took that firm stance. And he viewed them as Khawarij, or doing the khuruj against the Wali al-Amr at that time. And in that point there's a lesson for all of us. The stance that Ali radiallahu anhu took, in retrospect, yes, it was mistaken, because there was a lot of confusion that was happening at that time. How can someone say that Aisha radiallahu anha is a Kharija, or someone that goes against the Wali al-Amr? She's Ummahat al-Mu'mineen. She's a Sahabiya. But what it teaches us is that Ali, he understood that the reality of what it means that no one is above the law. No one is above the Sharia. That even if someone like Aisha radiallahu anha would have gone against the Sharia of Islam, then Ali radiallahu anhu would have established the Hadd. He would have established the right in Islam. So Ali was not moved by these sentimental emotions, saying that, oh, but she is the wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and so on and so forth, or Talha and Zubair being companions. He took a firm stance. And I wish to make it clear, and very, very clear, that I am not saying that this position itself was right or wrong, but this was ijtihad of Ali at that moment in time. And it shows us that when it comes to Islam, the same way that Ali radiallahu anhu was taught by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that even if Fatima radiallahu anha, his own daughter, the wife of Ali, would have stolen in that famous hadith, in that well-known hadith, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would have cut her own hand off. That he would have established their hadd. So it shows that Ali is following the manhaj, the way of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That there's certain things, yes, that you can compromise on, but there are other things that are cut in stone when it comes to the aqidah and the manhaj of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And unfortunately, this escalated. Once the other group found out about the stance of Ali radiallahu anhu, they took their own stance. And now you had two big communities of portions of the companions, those who were still alive, confronting each other head to head. And let us pause at that just for a moment. Like we mentioned in the previous class, it shows us that these things can happen. And it also shows us that these things not only happen, but it is not the end of things. Often we think when people clash, or communities clash, or groups within a community clash, that this is the end. The community is never going to survive this, or the country is never going to survive the civil war. But not only did it happen, but what happened afterwards, you will see that the Muslims they came together and they managed to move on from it, as we will explain later on. However, it came with a price. And the price was that during the Kholafaa of Uthman and during the Kholafaa of Ali in particular, because of this indecisiveness, that the Muslim community was broken in two, it almost completely halted many of the advancements of the Muslims. Yes, during the time of Ali, there was advancements in terms of the i'rab, the whole language of the Arabic language. It was codified and put into in a structured way so people other than Arabs could understand it. But the same expansion, the same progress that you saw, especially during the time of Umar radiallahu anhu and the beginning of Uthman, you did not see it during the time of Ali radiallahu anhu. And this teaches us that valuable lesson. Why do you think these big countries in the past, these empires, when they used to say, divide and conquer? We've heard this phrase before, they say divide and conquer. You cause a problem within a community, within a group of people, and they become so focused amongst themselves. You are right, no, I am right, no, you are wrong, no, so on and so forth. And they don't understand that the rug is being pulled underneath them, that other people are benefiting from their own internal struggle. This person wants power, that one wants authority, this one wants to be mentioned in a good way, and they're fighting amongst each other. And I don't mean to make it political, but I guess it is already political. But if you look at what has happened in Africa as a continent, why do you think the countries are divided the same way that they're divided? Why do you think that in the Muslim world these countries exist today? When you look back in history, you don't see these borderlines and you don't see these clearly defined countries. The reason goes back to that point that I was mentioning. It's because the Muslims themselves, the people of those countries, they were fighting. They were so busy in saying that you are wrong and I am right, and then other people came from the outside and they saw the gold and they saw the silver and they saw the natural resources and they took it. And until today, the Muslim Ummah, we are suffering from this. Not only that, but these people have left this mentality that we ended up judging each other. Instead of seeing each other as brother and sister, what do we say? We say, this person is a bit darker skinned than me. Or if you're lighter skinned, then you're better. This person is not from this country. This person is from another country. This person is from Pakistan and I am from India. This person is from Somalia and I am from Ethiopia. When in reality, when you look into history, the people were one and the same. And now, this is one point that when we look back into history that we can all benefit from. And I wish to end on a final note when, they say the year 2020 is the year of vision. When they say hindsight is 2020 because correct vision is supposed to be 2020, they say that when you look back into history, it's easy to pick and choose. When you're not there in person, it's easy to say, Ali was right. No, Muawiyah was right. No, Aisha radiallahu anha was right. And so on and so forth. And sometimes we forget the bigger picture of things. Do you know, just as a point, that Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah, when he was alive, people spoke against him very severely, to a point where they said, don't sit with Imam al-Bukhari. If you sit with Imam al-Bukhari, you're deviant, you're misguided. To such an extent that his own student, his closest student, Imam Muslim, who today we mention them together, Imam Bukhari and Muslim, his own student Muslim, he left him for a period of time. But what happened? What was the final result? The final result was people, they came to know the truth. And they went back to Imam al-Bukhari. Today, when we mention Bukhari, we say Rahimahullah. And we know him as a scholar. And even Imam Muslim during his lifetime, he realized that this was a fitna, this was a trial, and he went back. And the point here is that when we speak about these companions, we remember this point. That it is easy now, 1,400 years plus, to look back and to pick a side and say Ali was right and this person was wrong. But you did not live during those circumstances. You did not understand what they had to live through, the miscommunication that happened. And this is why, at least in my opinion, the stance of the Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah is the correct one. Meaning that as the Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, we say that when it comes to the companions, we hold our tongue. That we do not say this person was right or this person was wrong. We hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant all of them Jannah. And again, the reason why I repeat this statement again and again is because we as Muslims need to know our place and we need to know our relationship with those companions. Today, if you go on the internet and you type in Ma'rakat Jamal, just as an example, you'll find many different statements. People saying this person was wrong, this person was misguided. You'll find the Shia against the Sunnah, the Sunni against the Shia, and so on. But what we need to know as a collective is, what is the stance of those who follow the Quran and the Sunnah? That we leave these affairs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We love Ali, we love Aisha radiallahu anhum, ajma'een, all of them. Talha and Zubair, all the people, they might have been fighting, they might have killed each other, but at the end of the day, they are companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the same way that we make mistakes, they make mistakes, and we are all human beings. Inshallah, in the future classes, we will go into more detail about these different battles that happened, how Ali radiallahu anhu was killed, and what happened after the death of Ali radiallahu anhu. But throughout this all these classes, I wish to remind myself and my brothers and sisters the way that we speak about the companions. It is important, it's good for a Muslim to know that mistakes happen, because it highlights the humanity of these people. They were not angels. They were not angels, they were human beings, and human beings sometimes get it wrong, and sometimes they get it right. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it a point in the Quran to tell us that they were forgiven their mistakes and their shortcomings. So inshallah for tonight we will stop here. If